Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Jurassic World Cinematics. Before we begin today's episode, I would like to ask you to please also take a look at my gaming review YouTube channel called Konoha Reviews. You can find the link to that channel in the description down below. I do reviews of both old and new games, and you can even request some reviews, including of course, dinosaur games. In fact, I have a review of the game Jurassic Park Trespasser already filmed and coming out soon. So please take a look at my channel Konoha Reviews, and if you like what you see, then please subscribe, as it helps me out a lot. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the episode. The dinosaur park by now had a great variety when it came to their attractions and dinosaurs. New exotic species, like the Yanktorosaurus, pulled in much attention, as did some of the other giants, including the herbivores, but also the previous initialized Concavenator. But with these two giant carnivores, it was of course time to introduce another herbivore, and there were plenty of those. The park still did not have a Triceratops, nor something gigantic like a Diplodocus. But at this stage, the park was still in the process of building up the route towards its climax, meaning that regular types were now at hand. For the next pen, a large area was reserved to make room for another herd, this time even bigger than the Stegosaurus one. For this pen, the all well-known Parasaurs would be introduced, 7 in total. It would be a timely and long drawn-out process to move all of the dinosaurs towards the holding pen before they would be transported to their new home. Parasaurs were amongst the dinosaurs who had little to no defense mechanism, making them all the more relying on the herd mentality. They were overall a very friendly type of dinosaur, and it was common to see them intermingle with other similar species of dinosaurs at drinking holes in the wild. But for this pen, they wanted to keep the focus on just the Parasaurs rather than create another mixed pen. A Parasaur is in general also a pretty calm animal, and they kept pretty stress-free throughout the long process. It was likely because the dinosaurs were barely separated from each other, so they found comfort in one another throughout the day and night that the dinosaurs were transported and released. It took all throughout the next day until the process of just releasing them in the holding pen was complete. After this, they needed to be sedated and moved per helicopter to their new pen, another operation that would take all night. Having so many dinosaurs cluttered up together made it very easy for the rangers to put them to sleep, as they barely had to aim to hit something. It did turn out a little bit of a rampage, with so many dinosaurs making a run for it in a tiny space. The rangers did have to watch out not to be trampled, but the operation went once again very smoothly. And thus the Parasaurs were picked up by the transport helicopters and moved towards the pen. They had to do it in 2 or 3 turns to avoid the choppers from flying too close to one another. But once the Parasaurs were inside their new pen, they had again no problem adjusting to this new environment. The vegetation was much more rich than the holding cell, putting them at ease fairly soon alongside their fellow herd members. Even with the noise of the helicopters as the final dinosaurs were transported, none of the Parasaurs that were already in the pen gave a kick. In a way, they seemed to understand what was happening, probably because they had witnessed and experienced multiple flights in the past 48 hours. Instead, the Parasaurs headed towards the drinking area, like so many dinosaurs did once they got out of their sedation. It did not take long for the pen to adopt the smell of the herd, making them all the more comfortable, and to adhere to such a large quantity of dinosaurs, there were 2 feeding areas placed this time. The flat terrain and large amount of dinosaurs resulted once again in a good guaranteed view for the audience, especially with the forested area being put more to the rear of the pen itself. And the parasaurs had developed quite the appetite, and took turns feeding at the appointed spots all throughout the night and far into the morning. They seemed really pleased with their new home, and the group of 7 would often split into smaller ones throughout their pen, some playing, some relaxing, and others just drinking and eating. The new guests to the park also did not go unnoticed elsewhere. The Dimetrodon had a better view of the parasaurs than on the mixed iguanodon pen. One of the Dimetrodon was all the more interested in this new view of potential food roaming around in front of it. Maybe it actually fantasized about biting down on a juicy parasaur leg whenever it ate its received food at the automatic feeder. And so then, it was of course time for another carnivore. This time, it would have to be a more familiar star attraction to draw some attention to the new dinosaur, after the exotic Dimetrodon. And thus, the logical step would be to introduce Velociraptors to the park, always a fan favorite. They were very popular in previous iteration of the parks, and this time, they wanted to pull them to the foreground via a breed of visually more appealing raptors. This time, rather than a single color pattern, the raptors were engineered to have more vivid and rare color patterns, full on with stripes down their back. These would be more coherent with the promotional material when InGen was still only in its infancy. Also, these color patterns would be seen in the classic video game Jurassic Park Trespasser, of which you could see a video review of on the Kanoa Reviews channel. These vibrant raptors, for some reason, seemed a bit more mischievous than their regular counterparts. The old school look, like some labeled it, due to their earlier released footage during the 90s by InGen, set right with many audience members. A group of 5 raptors were bred and sent out. They immediately were seen communicating with one another and almost seemed to scheme a plan once the rangers headed in to sedate them. They spread out. The rangers had taken precaution and used double the dosage to assure the raptors would go down immediately. They were then transported to the pen as per usual, and this time during the day. The raptors were again a big pull for the audience, so doing this during the day assured the press on location to get some good footage for those watching back home. The raptors adjusted also pretty quickly to their new pen. There was a clear alpha amongst the pack, and the amount of space that was assigned to the raptors was a lot. The raptors, of course, loved to run around and were inclined to hunt, so a large amount of space was a necessity. The area itself was again quite flat, with not too many bushes or forested area near where the audience would be walking, to once again grant some fine displays. What was interesting to see was that there was a clear hierarchy amongst the raptors. Having an alpha was nothing new, but there was a clear order in which the raptors got to feed. They took turns in small groups, with the alpha always making sure that she was the one getting in first and getting the best meat. The raptors were beautiful. They showcased so much thought and caution in their movement and expression. It was clear that these were the smartest dinosaurs currently in the park. Yet none showcased aggression towards escaping, maybe as a result of some engineering or downplaying on their instincts. the raptors fit right into the park, and the park itself became so much more lively with each new inhabitant. Even older attractions like the Iguanodon still pulled in a lot of visitors, as there was just so much to do and see in the park now. Many more dinosaurs would see the light of day, both big and small, and the flattened terrain promised much more attractions to come, and hopefully they could all fit in as perfectly as the parasaurs did.